Thank you. It's all in the delivery. Now is the winter of our discontent.
Oh no, run!
Oh, yeah!
Searching for the unusual, the obscure, the forgotten treasures hidden deep within streaming media. This is the Deep Dive Podcast.
Plane in the sun! Get below! Lookouts, get below! Dive the boat! Dive the boat!
Take it down to 150 feet, steer course 090.
Continue to dive.
Hello, divers. How you feeling?
Are you alive out there?
You doing okay? Well, that's good to hear. Now, welcome to the Deep Dive Podcast, a never-ending quest to find the best and sometimes worst content hiding in your streaming media feeds. Mm-hmm. We are coming to you from our hermetically sealed chamber somewhere in the quarantine zone of New England. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm Tom Feeney, writer for Wing Shop Movie Magazine, available on Amazon.com. And with me, as always, is my COVID host.
Oh. My name is Manda, or the Mandalorian, here for your entertainment, and I'm still in quarantine.
You know, we really, we're glad if you're, inside and hunkered down. We are so grateful that you are choosing us to spend your time with, whatever time we have left.
This is not doomsday preppers, no.
No. The corona apocalypse is not a thing, so we just need to, get through this together. Mm-hmm. And, if I have to use anybody as a human shield, so be it.
So be it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our governor did actually just declare a state of emergency, and then our president, a whole nation, I think, is now?
Yes,
okay.
Under a state of anxiety attack.
Yeah, exactly. I think our last full episode, too, we were talking about tips and tricks and myths and whatnot, and those still stand true.
Absolutely.
Please wash your hands, cover your coughs, do all that fun stuff.
Wash your damn hands.
I have a fun story.
Oh.
I have actually experienced real-life quarantine.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Legitimately. So my husband is English, right? From the land of England.
That explains the accent.
It does. But when we were first dating, we were taking trips back and forth. Now, this was like maybe, I think, 12 or 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. And this is when I could get a round-trip flight to England for $200. Those are the days, right?
Well, you can pretty much now.
I was going to say, after every national thing that happened, so after 9/11, flight prices went down, and after Corona, you can get a trip to Florida for $52.
Yeah, I saw hotel rooms in Vegas going for like $35.
Is it worth the risk? But anyway, so I was coming back on. I had been there for like almost 3 months, and they give you those little questionnaires to fill out. At least they used to when you're coming from a different country. Well, one of the questions on there, it says, "Have you spent time with livestock or anything like that?" Like whatever. So. I'm like, yeah, my husband's grandmother lives on a farm. My mother-in-law keeps horses. Yeah, I was around horses and cows all day. No big deal, right? Wrong. So I come in, I go through security. Everything is fine. I give them my little paperwork. And then the next thing I know, a very calm, very heavily armed police officer says, "Ma'am, come this way." I'm about to start panicking. I'm 20 years old. I'm crying, and I'm in this little office, this very white room, very sanitized. And they just kept asking me, "Have you had a tetanus booster? Have you had all your booster shots? Have you had all this stuff?" And I'm like, "What is going on?" And they didn't tell me. That's the thing. They did not tell me what was going on.
Right.
My mother was there to pick me up. She had to wait about 4 hours until I was released. Yeah. And to this day, I have no 100% way of knowing of why I was kept, other than I've told people this story, and they say maybe there was still a threat of like mad cow, and I said I was near livestock, but mad cow happened in the 80s. So
yeah, and that's like from ingesting beef,
right? And I was like, I don't know why, but I honestly don't know why, but I was definitely in a quarantine situation. They took my bag, they took my phone. It was not fun. So getting to current day, those folks who are self-quarantining, I have the utmost respect for you, because I've been sent home from work indefinitely, not because I'm sick, but because my CEO is awesome and wants to take care of his employees. So I have to work from home, and I'm bored stiff after one day. I'm already scratching at the walls. So yeah, that's my little story.
Okay. All right. So speaking of stories,
We're in the fourth story.
Yeah, well, no, we're gonna talk about our topic today.
Oh, yes.
And
this is my favorite.
he's considered one of the greatest storytellers in the English language, and also the bane of millions of high school students' existence.
Tolkien.
No. We're talking about the Bard of Avon,
Oh, Mr. Shakespeare.
or just Bill to his friends.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know something? My husband dated a girl who was actually like a super descendant of his family and still lived in Stratford-upon-Avon.
Really?
Not even joking.
Wow.
She wasn't related to him necessarily. It was actually his wife, but whatever. We'll get into that.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. So, Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
Now, from the late 16th century to the early 17th, his plays, sonnets, and poems were part of the cultural landscape of England and have endured for nearly a half millennium. Mm-hmm. Today, his works have served as prime fodder for modern entertainment. Now, I understand that you have compiled a list of fun Shakespeare facts.
I have.
Oh, let's hear them.
Also, you know what's fun is that when you think of the Tudors, really people think of Elizabeth I. We should be thinking about Shakespeare because that was all throughout her reign. But, anyways. Okay, so a couple of things I found interesting. First of all, Sir Ian McKellen, who I will talk about in my picks.
Brilliant.
Amazing. Did you know he was like a brilliant stage actor before he became like a movie actor? Mm-hmm. He has starred in over 20 productions of Shakespeare's works.
Wow.
20. That's a lot of plays.
It's a lot of Shakespeare.
It's a lot of Shakespeare.
It's a lot of iambic pentameter.
Oh man, iambic pentameter. I love when I first learned that word. It was horizon, or it was opening in my eyes. Kenneth Branagh, also another famous lover of Shakespeare, has adapted actually the most Shakespearean works into films, such as Henry V, Hamlet, Much Ado About Nothing, Othello. Oh, and As You Like It. Have you seen that one? That one I love.
Was that the one with Denzel Washington?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I believe so. He also creepily looks like Shakespeare in the movie that I'm going to talk about. Like, creepy. Creepy. Anyways, in the south corner of Westminster Abbey, there is what they call the Poets' Corner. And actually, if you've ever been there are sections of the Abbey that is dedicated to different types and I guess different, I don't want to say classes, but you have philosophers over here and you have poets over here and you have mathematicians over there. But in the Poets' Corner, there is a statue or a bust commemorated to Shakespeare, but he's also alongside like people like Geoffrey Chaucer, who like wrote the Canterbury Tales, Canterbury Tales, Robert Burns, who gave us Auld Lang Syne, and also if you're a fan of Outlander, the Freedom and Whiskey Gang Together. And the Bronte sisters.
Oh,
yeah. Side note: if you've never been to the Abbey and you want to go, or you going there, it's a beautiful place, and I highly recommend it. I mean, Edward I is there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Shakespeare's direct line actually ended with his daughters because they had sons and they either died really young or their sons didn't produce any children and then died after getting married.
Oh.
So really the only lineage we have to look back is again with his wife, Anne Hathaway, and I guess some of her descendants.
I love her work. She's great as Catwoman.
Guess who's my... Ew, no, take that back.
Oh, come on.
No. So the actress Anne Hathaway is not related to Shakespeare's wife, Anne, but was instead named after her as a tribute, I guess.
Interesting.
Her parents are also actors.
Huh.
Now, I think I've read that there was either going to be Anne Hathaway or Elizabeth, and of course Elizabeth would have been in reference to Elizabeth I, because her parents are like big into that. Okay, fans generally refer to Richard III as being one of the most famous and often recreated works by Shakespeare, in which the very famous portrayal of Richard by Sir Laurence Olivier has been branded as one of the best portrayals ever in modern history. Modern history. How does he say it? He goes, "Now is the winter of our discontent." Something like that.
Okay.
Never mind.
We'll play the clip for later on for reference.
Yeah, I actually suggest that we play that in the beginning, but I mean, who am I? I'm only the producer and co-host, but whatever.
You wanted to make a Corona joke.
I did,
and that's not funny anymore.
Not anymore, but yeah, okay. But anyways, those are my fun facts, and I've got some really cool stuff for Shakespeare, and I'm very excited about it.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right, so you want me to go first?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so now my first pick may not seem like a Shakespearean adaptation at first glance.
Oh, it's one of those.
Or second or third or fourth glance. But It is the 1956 science fiction classic Forbidden Planet.
Forbidden Planet?
Forbidden Planet.
Imagine yourself as one of the crew of this faster-than-light spaceship of the future, sharing their curiosity to know the unknown, their tension, their readiness for inconceivable adventures. When you reach the Forbidden Planet, you will meet Dr. Morbius, played by Walter Pidgeon. The Doctor is sole owner of this fabulous world. Anne Francis is his alluring daughter Alta, who has never seen a young man till she meets Commander Adams, played by talented Leslie Nielsen. You will meet a charming character in The Robot, able to produce on order 10 tons of lead or a slinky evening gown. Always at your service.
Oh, yeah.
Did that just say
Planet.
Leslie Nielsen?
Yes. The Leslie Nielsen before he was supposed to be funny. So, this brings up the question, what does a movie set in the 23rd century on the planet Altair 4 have to do with Shakespeare? Well, I'll tell you.
Is it like a Romeo and Juliet thing?
No, that's my next pick.
Oh.
There are several elements of Forbidden Planet's plot that echo themes in Shakespeare's play The Tempest. Now, in the play, a sorcerer named Prospero and his daughter Miranda are stranded on a remote island where intruders threaten to upset the delicate balance of what has been built there. In Forbidden Planet, it's a scientist named Morbius stranded on the planet Altair 4 with his daughter, Altaria, of course, and a rescue ship is sent to find out what happened to the scientist and his team. There they find Morbius and his daughter. The rest of the team had been killed by some mysterious monster that seems to be connected to the advanced alien race that once lived there. Now, Morbius does not want the alien technology to leave Altair 4, says that Earth is not ready for it. Yeah, we've heard that before. You humans are not ready for our technology.
And yet we have the Motorola Razr.
Exactly. What could be more advanced than that? But Morbius, the crazy doctor guy, he might be responsible for the monster's creation itself.
It's always a Morbius.
Yeah, it's always a Morbius. Now, Prospero from The Tempest and Morbius are very much alike in that they are both trying to control their environments, somewhat unsuccessfully. One, Prospero uses magic, Morbius uses alien technology, and both get really horribly out of control. And there are other similarities, too. In both, the daughter falls in love with one of the newcomers. There's a dangerous monster in both stories. In The Tempest, it's the inhuman slave Caliban, and the so-called monster from the id that terrorizes the visitors in Forbidden Planet. Now, the stories and characters are quite different in both, so you can't call it a straight adaptation. After all, Forbidden Planet did have a cool robot named Robbie, and as everyone knows, Shakespeare didn't include any robots in his plays after King Lear.
That's good.
Oh, now Forbidden Planet is a remarkable achievement in motion pictures because it truly heralded in a new age of science fiction filmmaking and special effects. It took its subject matter very seriously, and it inspired and influenced Star Trek, Doctor Who, and Star Wars. It's also a serious sci-fi movie at a time when most entries in that genre were campy and cheesy. It deals with some pretty deep subject matter for a 50s movie with rockets, robots, and aliens, and of course, Leslie Nielsen. And it's hard to watch. Sometimes it's hard to watch if all you've ever known from Leslie Nielsen is Airplane. Naked Gun, and all that. Watching him, you want to laugh, but you're like, wait, he's not trying to be funny. And
I'm confused.
Yeah. But it's great. And Forbidden Planet, to me, it's a classic movie, worthy of the Bard, worthy of being considered a loose adaptation of his work, The Tempest. Now, for the scores. Forbidden Planet gets a 7.6 out of 10 on the Internet Movie Database, and, get this, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, because it's a classic. It really is a great movie. It's available to rent for the low price of $2.99 on YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, and Vudu. So, that is my first pick. Once again, I try to, go out a little bit out there.
Definitely to different space systems out there.
Yes.
You know who else this happens to quite frequently is Jane Austen, because a lot of books and movies will come out that are Jane Austen-esque, right? Or Pride and Prejudice
and Zombies.
You know what I mean?
I love that, actually.
the book was funny. I thought the book was. I haven't actually seen the
I
movie.
thought it was pretty good.
But do you know what I mean? Or sometimes there's those movies that actually have the same plot or something like that, but they're not.
Right.
Called
So
that.
they're modernizations, or
Right. And I really can only think of them two, Austen and Shakespeare, as being worthy enough for these reproductions.
Well, I mean, you have stuff like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Bram Stoker's Dracula, things like that.
But they always are about said monsters, right?
Yes, yeah, pretty much.
And there's not a lot of times a lot of underlying, tropes that you have to go through.
Right.
But whereas you decided to go out there, I actually stuck with Shakespeare.
Oh.
Because I enjoy theater very, very much.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, first pick. It is called All Is True. It came out a couple years ago in 2018, directed by Kenneth Branagh, who, as we recently discussed, is a huge Shakespearean dude.
Oh, yes.
He starred in it as Shakespeare, creepily looks like him. We have Dame Judi Dench and Sir Ian McKellen, which, by the way, Dame is actually the feminine equivalent of a knight.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
I think you should call me Dame Manda from now on. But,
Instead of damn Manda. That damn Manda.
I get it.
Wow.
Do we have like a sound effect we could put in there?
I'll work on that.
Anyways, All Is True. So, let me a little backstory. In June of 1613, the Globe Theatre, which is, of course, most famously known as the House of Shakespeare, burnt down to the ground. They actually had at the time, a reproduction cannon shoot off during a scene of Henry VIII. So that caught fire to some robes or whatever, and boop, it all went down.
Yeah, for the insurance money.
Yeah, oh yeah. It has since been built, by the way. It was built and unveiled, I think, in 1997, something like that. So they tried to stick with original plans, but of course it's nothing like it was before.
Yeah.
But anyways, if you want to go to a theater in England, that's where you head to. The movie, I should say, opens up with the aftermath, whereby Shakespeare who's played by Branagh, has returned home to his wife, Anne, and his children. Judi Dench is Anne Hathaway, and she is so amazing in this role. But beyond that, what you should know is that, true to history, Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway didn't live together very much, actually, after they got married. So they lived quite solemn lives, but very comfortable. Like, he would send her money, and she would maintain the home, whatever. They didn't fight because they weren't really living with each other. So he comes home, the scene opens up, and, he's kind of in this weird, awkward place. Like, I know you're my wife, but we haven't really talked in years. Mm-hmm. She says something like, I will give you the best bed in the house because, a guest deserves the best bed. And I guess maybe later on towards the end, and actually historically accurate, in his will, Shakespeare left the second best bed to his wife as a personal joke between them, which I think was kind of cute. But anyways, the movie then follows his reintegration into his family. Now, his son, Hamnet, which is also true, died at the young age of 11. And as was custom to the time, they recognized primogeniture. His death put a wrench in his father's plans. He was going to carry on his legacy, become a writer, etc., etc. It also meant that the relationship he had with his fraternal twin sister, Judith, was a little bit strained, right? Because it was kind of like one of those things, you should have died instead of my son. Yeah.
Oh, I get that all the time.
Not funny, but also funny.
Yeah.
So he has to navigate it. Now, enter the Earl of Southampton, played by the modern Shakespeare himself, Mr. or Sir Ian McKellen. He is hilarious. I just think I can look at Ian McKellen and I know he's going to say something and I'm probably going to either cry, like weep, or die laughing. Because he's just so versatile. I love him so much. Gandalf will always have a special place in my heart.
Yes.
You know how it goes.
Oh, yeah.
But pray, what doth he say that might clench the hearts of men? I wrote that in my notes.
What?
Well, soon you'll find out. You'll find out actually how Hamnet died. And I don't want to spoil it because it's a really, really, really good movie. Now, it came out to limited release, and I didn't know what that meant until I kind of researched this. They only did premieres in New York, in LA. I think those are the two cities, and then they did like limited release movie theaters. So you could only find this in like near city hubs. I think they played in Boston, but the majority of people had to go online and book a ticket to see this way in advance.
Wow.
And then it came out in England to rave reviews, but it's still one of those things where it did so well without having the typical, audience thing from theaters. But where can you watch it now? Well, luckily, if you have a Star subscription, you can watch it for free.
Oh, nice.
You can also purchase it on Amazon, YouTube, Google Play, iTunes for $12.99, which honestly, if you don't trust me, that's okay. But trust me with this one thing, you want to buy this movie. So you can watch it over again. Now, scores. IMDb gave it a 6.2. I don't agree with it.
Oh.
Don't agree with it at all. Metacritic gave it a 59. Also don't agree with it. And Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 72. I think it could be a little bit higher. I'm going to give it an 8.5. Acting was superb. I mean, Kenneth Branagh is so just really good in general, but also I think he gets a certain energy from Shakespearean works that definitely comes through on the screen. And the fact that he looks so much like whatever picture you've seen of Shakespeare, whether
pretty
it's
much the one.
There's one,
profile.
right? It was like that wood carving that came out. I mean, just think of that, and I'm telling you, he looks and it's so creepy. But anyways, that's my first pick. I absolutely love this film. I didn't know it existed until about a week ago, and it is just so good. And it's one of those ones where you would miss it. It is not on the radar because it's just I don't think that they made it to be a box hit, like a box office hit. It
was more like a personal project?
I think so. I really do, because that whole limited release thing, and then going straight to streaming services and I guess in this case straight to Blu-ray. But I don't think it's often that actors with such huge records behind them would star in a movie that wasn't intended for large release.
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, I know that actors like Kenneth Branagh they will do a couple of like mainstream projects in order to get the money to be able to fund their own personal projects. I
guess maybe that makes sense then. And I can totally see Kenneth Branagh being behind this and roping people in and say, hey, let's just have a good time with it.
Exactly.
But I absolutely loved it, and you got to check it out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So you actually did kind of go out of the box a little bit, because it was not an adaptation of a Shakespeare work, but a representation
almost
of a
like
part
a biopic
of his life.
Yeah,
so that's
true.
pretty cool. So there you go.
Oh, I'm cool, and I didn't even know it.
See that? Don't get used to it. So very good pick. I like that one a lot.
Thank you.
Nice. So if you've listened to this show at all, and if you have, bless your heart. Thank you for sticking with us. You know that I like to kind of dive pretty deep, so deep that there may be only darkness surrounding you.
Ooh.
And that's where you will find
anglerfish.
The fine folks at Troma Entertainment. If you are unfamiliar with the name Troma, shame on you.
Is it anything to do with Roger Corman?
Yeah, you're in the same area.
Yeah.
So Troma is an independent movie company that's been around since 1974 and is responsible for such non-classics as The Class of Nukem High, Monster in the Closet, Surf Nazis Must Die, the Toxic Avenger series, which I think 3 or 4 of those, and even a cartoon series there was in the 80s.
Oh, man.
And my second pick, the 1996 comedy Tromeo and Juliet. I am not joking about that. They actually named the character Tromeo after the studio. Now, this adaptation of Romeo and Juliet has one thing going for it that many Troma films simply lack. And I'm looking at you, Sergeant Kabuki Band, NYPD. Yeah, that's another one of them. So, this one actually has a fairly decent amount of quality to it. It's super low budget, even for their standards. The whole movie costs about $350,000. Now
that's not a lot.
That's not a lot. I mean, keep in mind that in the same year, 1996, Independence Day came out, and that had a budget of about $75 million.
Good movie.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But even with that tiny little budget that they had, Romeo and Juliet turned out to be a very entertaining movie. Much more entertaining, in my opinion, than that overblown version with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes that came out the same year.
I really don't like that version.
I don't either.
I would like people to fight me on it.
Now,
no,
well,
don't. But I
okay.
truly don't like it.
No, me neither. And it's the director Baz Luhrmann who did that is really hit and miss for me.
Yeah,
because
agreed.
I loved Moulin Rouge.
I didn't like Moulin Rouge.
Oh, you and my wife have that in common.
Simply because I really just can't get over Nicole Kidman. She's just not my cup of tea.
Well, that's fine.
But I would say I loved that soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, a little bit back and forth. So, but I think Tromeo and Juliet is a much better movie in my opinion. Now, of course, being a trauma movie, there are a few little subtle differences in the story and characters. I mean, the basic tale is there. There's these two warring families living in modern day New York City in this one. Tromeo, once again, that is his lead character, is a kind of a loner and a pervert. And Juliet is a nymphomaniac. So that's kind of different. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of the requisite trauma, sex, and gore, and bad jokes,
Studio
and
54.
terrible special effects, right?
Oh, man.
There's a lot of this. I mean, there's head smashings, there's decapitations.
Special effects in Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. Head smashings, decapitations, vomiting, close-ups of actual piercings. Oh, there's one other thing. There's at one point where Juliet drinks this potion.
Yeah, to go to sleep?
No, that turns her into a disgusting cow monster with huge male genitalia. So, and no, you did not hear that incorrectly. It's exactly what I said. It's this weird, like, cow monster.
Ew.
So, yeah, this is a weird one. And for me, the weirdest twist of all is that this version has a happy ending, unlike Romeo and Juliet.
What?
Yeah, I know. They really went for it and said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to flip the switch and it's going to be a happy ending despite all this stuff that we've been throwing at you, that's crazy stuff. So, I mean, if you're into stories about star-crossed lovers caught between two worlds mixed with blood, boobs, and bad jokes, this is for you. If you and you know what, you can make the case that when Shakespeare was in his prime, when he was writing these plays, he was not writing them for the upper class. He was writing them for the dregs of society, the average person, the peasants. And so, in a weird way, this movie, Romeo and Juliet, is doing the same thing. It is appealing to that kind of lowest common denominator. It's not high art by any means, but in Shakespeare's day, neither was his stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, his stuff was for the masses.
Yeah.
Did I mention this movie is narrated by late rock legend Lemmy of Motorhead?
Shut up.
No. And if that doesn't make you want to watch this, I don't know what.
You know what?
will.
Now I'll give it a watch now.
Okay. And if that wasn't enough, if having Lemmy in this movie narrating it was not enough.
Wait, can you even understand it? You need subtitles.
More or less, yeah. So, are you a fan of Guardians of the Galaxy Volumes 1 and 2?
Yeah.
The writer and director of those and many other films, James Gunn, wrote Tromeo and Juliet.
Oh, he's that old?
It was his first film as a screenwriter.
My word.
That's right. James Gunn wrote Tromeo and Juliet. So there you go. It's crazy. And it's so over the top, gross, but funny. And you can see where he kind of got that sort of style from. So So believe me, it sounds horrifying, and in some ways it is because it's gross.
The cow monster. I mean,
it's gross. It's gross. It's got a lot of bad jokes, funny bad jokes, a lot of blood, gore, nudity, the whole thing, all the trauma tropes that company is known for. But I'm saying get thee to a monitor and check it out. That's what I'm saying.
Nice.
So here's the scores. Tromeo and Juliet gets a 6.1 out of 10 on the Internet Movie Database and 62% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Unexpected.
Unexpected, but, So wherefore art this movie? If you're an Amazon Prime Video subscriber, you can watch it there or on most other streaming services for $2.99. And if you want it on the cheap, the PlayStation Store has it for the low price of 99 cents.
Oh, wow. I love the
right.
PlayStation Store.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and if you don't have a console, you can actually still use the store on your mobile device.
Yeah, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
It's good that they didn't exclude people that didn't want to.
Yeah, exactly. All you Microsoft fans.
Give us your
there.
money. Give us
Yeah,
your
right.
money. Do you have any honorable mentions?
I have another pick, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, I've got one more pick, and It's really funny though, because I think the most what word would you say? The most like crazy thing that happened to Romeo and Juliet really was the fact that Mercutio got run through with a sword.
Yes.
And yet this version has blood and guts and gore, and it's just, but no, not mine. Yours.
Oh, mine. Oh, yeah.
Oh, God,
mine,
no.
it's a decapitation.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My second pick. This one is genuinely Shakespeare. So I chose Julius Caesar. Now, Shakespeare, of course, writes in three genres mainly, right? Comedy, tragedy, and history. History, one of his most notable plays, of course, was Julius Caesar, but he also did Antony and Cleopatra, based on real events. Henry VIII, Henry V, Richard III, etc.
All the sequels.
Yeah. But I think the true brilliance of Shakespeare was his ability to dramatize events for a wider audience that weren't necessarily in the know, as it were, right? Like the peasantry, not just the gentry. So the average commoner could come in and could recognize themes and say, you know what, wow, that happens in my life too. So a little bit of backstory. I'm sure everyone knows the name Julius Caesar.
Et tu, Manda?
Oh, yes. He was a Roman general and one of the most consequential persons in the fall of the Roman Republic, and then, therefore, the formation of the Roman Empire. After becoming the most powerful politician, he introduced many reforms, such as offering citizenship to folks who were on the outskirts of the lands, because, of course, Romans would go and conquer and say, you're part of Rome now. But, of course, they couldn't speak the language. They didn't look like them. So he decided, you know what, we're going to get everyone involved, and once you become a citizen, I will then, have to judge you and make you do things for me. He also tried to implement the Julian calendar, which, thank God, we do not go by that. Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Well, you know what I mean, the Gregorian calendar. Eventually, he was proclaimed to be the dictator perpetuo, or dictator for life, which was actually, in fact, the exact same thing he was, quote unquote, fighting against, which was a single solitary monarch type thing. This, of course, angered many, many of the lower politicians. And you know what? They decided, no dude is going to have all that power. We don't care how cool you look in that robe. So
it's a good look.
Yeah, they waited until he got to the Senate, and then they just took their turns and, shanked him.
Yeah, basically.
And that famous saying, "Et tu, Brute," which in Latin I think is described as "and you, Brutus," or "and you, my son," because of course Caesar was rumored to be Brutus's father, his biological father. But anyways, I guess Brutus, or Marcus Brutus, was always on the fence of between, like, do I follow him? Do I like him? I don't want this kind of government. And there's this famous idea, or at least propaganda, I guess, that he was all about Rome. I love Rome. I don't care. I'll do anything for Rome and the Roman, way of life. So when he helped kill Caesar, he was seen as basically a hero. So anyways, this play, despite being named after Julius Caesar, the reality is Shakespeare identifies early on that the difficulties with Brutus were that he was having this internal struggle, right? Am I loyal to Caesar? Can I see his vision? Or do I want things to go kind of back to the way they were, but also we just don't want an emperor, right? Because we don't like that. We don't like this whole taxation thing. Caesar was in some ways a mentor for Brutus, and during what might be seen as a tyrannical rule, which of course everyone knows, when what's his face? Tall guy with a hat, president. Bim, bim.
Abraham Lincoln?
There you go. When he got shot.
Wow. The vampire hunter, Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. When he was shot, the guy who often was like 6'7" or 10, whatever he said. Yeah.
John Wilkes Booth.
That's the dude. And that was the same thing that was uttered at Caesar's killing. That was last protestation, when they were like, no more tyrannical emperors, but whatever. In any case, Brutus is forced to support him or to join with those who are conspiring against him in the effort to prevent a one-man domination system, i.e. an empire. In the end, and of course it's not a spoiler to say that Caesar's assassinated, but that's not the end of the play. And with it being named Julius Caesar, you would think, all right, cool, the main guy's dead, no big deal, right? actually it goes on and follows Brutus, because really this whole play is just about Brutus, and at least in my opinion. He leads opposition forces against Mark Antony and Octavius, but despite fighting valiantly, he cannot win the upcoming battle. He knows this, and he decides to take his own life. Now, we've discussed, I think maybe in like a history episode, the idea of honor being intrinsically entwined with suicidality. Brutus takes his own life because he does not want it to be taken by someone else, basically. And so basically the back and forth and his key decisions that he makes ironically leads to what he was fighting against the whole time, which is another emperor. Enter Octavius. Yeah. So, yeah. Now, that's the kind of the scope of the play. The one that I'm going to reference specifically, and I think is probably one of my favorite versions I've ever seen, was the 1969 version that was produced by the BBC. So I had never seen it before until I was in high school. And back then, my teacher had to pay for it to be a VHS sent to her from England, and then we would put it on one of those giant TVs, and no one could actually see anything, so we had to get straight. But in any case, you can now find it on BBC iPlayer, which used to not be available in the States.
Yeah, they changed that?
But it is now in some regard, right? So you use iPlayer for current news or blah, blah, blah. Sometimes they will open it up, or you could just use a VPN. I mean, whatever.
We're not authorizing.
We're not at
any kind
all.
Of pirating of.
But the BBC also did have this thing where they would have a show of the month or a production of the month, and this was one of the ones that was highly requested because it was just so well done, and it is one of the most famous productions that people think of. It actually stars Robert Stevens as Mark Antony and Maurice Denham as Julius Caesar. Maurice Denham and Robert Stevens were huge actors on the stage. They basically, that's where Ian McKellen got his inspiration from, that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really wonderful. Now you can find a full version of this on YouTube. Someone, they uploaded it, and it is about an hour and 15 minutes. So it's a little bit lengthy. But some parts are cut out, I think, just for copyright reasons.
Yeah.
You can check it out. It's really great. I think that the actors do such a great job of maintaining their characters, but also just staying so true to Shakespeare and trying to make it applicable for at least that modern time.
Yeah.
So, and now there's another reason why I chose to showcase this particular production.
Yes.
And that is, the year after this came out, Charlton Heston starred in Julius Caesar, which was a another loose adaptation of this. But I didn't want to do that because I feel like Charlton Heston had really one style of acting. Yeah. He really did, right? Yeah. And this is before the NRA. And he didn't bring to Marcus Brutus what Robert Burns, or I'm sorry, another guy did, but he also, I think if he had played Caesar, it would have just been a catastrophe. So I didn't want to showcase that, and not in like a mean way, but it just, for me, it overshadowed this stage production, so I just didn't want to do it. But anyways, there are no scores, right? Because it's hard for IMDb and places like that to rate these. But if you go on to the BBC's page and you search for this film, and this production, and you see it, there will be tons and tons and tons of reviews, some by like really famous people. Richard Armitage, for example, who's another lover of film and stage productions and whatnot. But so anyways, it's my favorite play, I would say, and that's my second pick.
Nice. Go ahead. I was
gonna say, I think I overwhelmed you. I may have Shakespeare'd you. Get
Ooh,
it?
Ow.
Spear.
Yeah, I actually feel like it now. But it's interesting you mentioned Charlton Heston in that role, because I immediately thought of John Wayne in The Conqueror, where he played Genghis Khan.
How racist was that?
Oh my God, one of the absolute worst ideas ever.
Who said it was going to be okay to take a white cowboy, put some black hair on him, and call him Asian?
Awful. Just awful.
Oh, man.
The worst. And you know what? In a sense of like cosmic karma, where they were shooting that movie, it was a place where they tested atomic bombs.
Oh,
and
nice.
like a lot of the cast eventually got cancer.
Wow.
Including John Wayne himself.
Yeah, well.
So
yeah.
I don't know if there's a direct connection, but some people say that. But that's okay. That's okay. So
Also, Charlton Heston played Moses, if you remember, too.
oh my God,
Two different areas of time, but both like, nah.
Yeah, I know. It's just that style.
Yeah, he really was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
This is a good episode.
It is good. Yes, I got a couple of
enjoyed it.
honorable mentions.
Oh, do you? Yes,
I do.
go ahead.
I do. A few actually. My first is a really obscure, once again, a really obscure adaptation, and it's animated.
Oh.
And it's basically it's kind of a futuristic kind of a thing, and it's called Romeo and Juliet, like the number. And it's a very charming animated version of Romeo and Juliet from 1979. It was made by a famous Canadian animation studio, Nelvana. And
For kids?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's very charming, and it's really cool. The animation is fun, and you can actually watch it for free on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
My next honorable mention is the 1953 musical adaptation of Taming of the Shrew, Kiss Me Kate, which is based on the Broadway musical.
Oh, okay.
Really fun, great
Yeah.
musical, great songs. You can get that for $2.99 on most streaming platforms, as well as Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet from 1996.
I was just going to say, you cannot go wrong with any Kenneth Branagh adaptation.
Especially, well, I mean, for this one is very unique because it has the distinction of being the first completely unabridged film adaptation of any Shakespeare play.
Really?
With a runtime of over 4 hours. That's right.
So tuck in.
Yeah. So you may want to pause it halfway if you need to use the chamber pot. But yeah. So if you're looking for like full-on Shakespeare, you can't get enough of the Bard, and that's the way to go, right there. All right.
Bard.
The Bard.
Good
So
times.
yeah.
I
so,
really enjoyed this episode. I really
Yeah,
did.
this was good. All right, so we're gonna recap our picks.
Yes, my first pick was All Is True, 2018 film starring Mr. Kenneth Branagh. And then my second was the 1969 production of Julius Caesar.
Excellent.
From the BBC.
Very nice. So for me, the loose adaptation of The Tempest called Forbidden Planet, the classic sci-fi
Still
movie.
can't get over that.
I know, but it's yeah. And the low budget adaptation, Tromeo and Juliet. So that does it for our picks. Now, before we wrap this episode up, this month, when we're recording this, from March 13th to April 15th, is Deaf History Month, which was created to bring awareness to those hearing impaired or deaf persons who have made significant contributions to society. I'm bringing this up because podcasts are a form of media that can leave people with hearing difficulties feeling left out of the loop.
Yeah.
That's why we here at the Deep Dive Podcast are using a service called Audio Burst. Audio Burst provides full transcripts of podcasts for free that can be accessed by anyone. And now that includes our little show.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're going to have a link
so
on our
cool.
page to our Audio Burst. And so all of our, our episodes are now up there, so you can listen to it there, or you can read
it.
a full transcript of the show, which I think is great. And that's why, I wanted to mention that because I think it's a really cool thing that...
And it's a little bit better done than the YouTube captions, I just got to say.
Oh, yeah. That's like
But I
Google
think
Translate.
it's so cool. I think, and also, if it wasn't clear why we chose Shakespeare, we're coming up to the Ides of March.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, if you all know.
They're upon us.
They are upon us. Beware of the Ides of March. Isn't that funny that coronavirus is happening during the Ides of March? I'm just saying. I'm not superstitious. Anyways, March 15th is when Caesar was killed. That's why it's called the Ides of March.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyways, but that's really cool. You can find all those links though, and like our merch store, and our links to our Instagram, and our email, and our Facebook, and our Twitter, all that glorious stuff. TheDeepDivePodcast.com.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody listening.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you take the time to listen to us. We know that, you've got a lot of options out there. I know that especially these days, you may be binge watching more, staying in, and doing a lot more of that. So hopefully some of our picks will be able to get you through these times and, give you something to look forward to and to watch while we all just try to figure out what's happening now. Do you know what I mean?
And we got some feedback on our iTunes page. We got some ratings, which is so helpful. So
yeah, it's great.
If you feel like rating us on iTunes, please go ahead. It's how we get this show to more people.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're just two friends hanging out, and what's better than hanging out with a bunch more of your friends?
Exactly. So
listening to us.
subscribe, Tell people about it. If you think anybody that you know might be interested or might enjoy just listening to the two of us prattle on about Shakespeare and other things, we would appreciate it. So,
Absolutely.
all right, you ready to wrap this up?
I'm ready.
All right, for the amazing Mandalorian and all of us here in Studio D, I'm Tom Feeney. Stay healthy.
Fare thee well.
You can find links to our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram feeds on our website, thedeepdivepodcast.com. If you like us, please subscribe. All clips are intended for educational use only and not to infringe on existing copyrights. Our theme music was produced by Ryan Blaney and EchoCraft. Thanks for listening. The Deep Dive Podcast is a production of Automaton Media.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles.